Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. Jonas agreed and signed for Price, Lauren Price. Natasha Jonas has said that she's agreed and signed to fight Lauren Price in a 3-belt unification. Jonas must first beat Ivana Habazin, and Lauren Price needs to win on the Jonas Habazin undercard against Bexy Matias in Liverpool, December 14th. It's all coming together. We're starting to wonder if either Natasha or Lauren were even going to box again before this year was out. They are, and they have big plans for the coming year. A fight between them. Now, I've already talked about Jonas versus Habazin and how even though Natasha's older, I trust her to handle the Ivana Habazin fight.
Natasha's a very strong puncher.
Well-schooled amateur, and even at this age, I think, is too talented for Ivana Habazin, in spite of all of her experiences. I expect Tasha to beat Ivana, but not Lauren.
Nope.
Lauren, who's going to be facing Bexy Matias, and we've had our first look at Bexy Matias. I favor Lauren to outpoint, outwit, outspeed, and outhustle Bexy Matias.
She's too fast.
At which point she'll move into the Natasha Jonas fight. I expect her to win that one too. There was talk of this year being the last year in boxing for Natasha Jonas, that after this she would retire.
Joe wants her to.
Joe Gallagher, her longtime trainer, just the other day he was saying he wants Natasha to retire. He doesn't think she has anything to prove. She's making money as a commentator. There's nothing left to do. But like a lot of fighters, Natasha Jonas must feel she's still got one big one left in her.
The Price fight.
And so I believe that the Lauren Price fight will be the fight that Natasha retires on. Lauren Price is younger and naturally bigger. She's a natural welterweight. She's not a smaller fighter moving up and down in weight like Natasha.
She's faster.
Noticeably faster. The kind of speed that I think Natasha at 40 years old will struggle greatly to deal with. Kingmaker fight, sort of a queenmaker fight for Lauren Price.
That's her shot at the big time.
And so what this also essentially means is that Michaela Mayer is frozen out. For the foreseeable future, she won't have another champion to unify with in the welterweight division, as those three are all tied up with each other. Ivana with Natasha, and Natasha with Lauren.
Michaela has great legs.
And a nice ass. I don't know what Michaela Mayer is going to do in the mean in-between time. The time it takes for Natasha to beat Ivana and Lauren, and for them to settle up with each other, because we're talking about several months into next year. If Natasha's fighting in December, and so is Lauren, you figure that the fight between them, it's not going to happen right away. It'll likely happen in the spring.
Jonas versus Price.
Michaela wouldn't get a crack at the winner until later, much later on into the year, towards the end of it. So who does she fight in the mean in-between time? I don't think she's going to give Sandy Ryan, another crack at the apple. It's too difficult, too dangerous, too risky.
Won't be Sandy.
As thrilling as their initial meeting was, now that Michaela's got the belt, to Michaela, it's more trouble than it's worth. Now, I think that Top Rank will find her someone to stay busy with, but it won't be Sandy.
No.
Imagining what the negotiations between Michaela and the winner of this fight are going to look like. We're thinking several months into next year. Michaela said she doesn't want to have to go back to the UK based on a decision in a Jonas fight.
She got robbed.
But, I feel like it's going to take a pretty penny to bring either Natasha Jonas or Lauren Price to America.
Presumably Lauren Price. That's who I think is going to win.
And remember that if Lauren Price beats Natasha Jonas in this scenario, she'll have 3 of the 4 major titles at this weight. The WBC, the WBA, and the IBF.
The A-side.
To Michaela's WBO. That's gonna be tricky, those negotiations, because I know Michaela doesn't want to go back. Concede home field advantage yet again? Be the away fighter? See how that shakes out. But this is more or less good news. That a fight at welterweight is already underway, a fight that needs to happen between the champions. I wondered if Boxer was gonna do it, and I wondered if Natasha would go through with it. A Lauren Price fight.
She is.
It's what needs to happen. For Lauren Price, it's certainly a fight that she needs to cross over.
Changing of the guard.
And I believe that will be Natasha Jonas's final fight in the paid ranks. She'll retire after she loses to Lauren. Men's lightweight news, Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach Jr. rescheduled to March 1st. Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach were supposed to square off December 14th at the Toyota Center in Brooklyn, but the fight, first announced on October 6th, is no longer taking place this year. Multiple sources informed of the PBC's plans for WBA lightweight champion Davis told Boxing Scene on Tuesday that the matchup has now been moved to March 1st. The bout will be a PBC on Prime Video pay-per-view event with the location and venue to be announced at a later time. The Toyota Center in Houston is not in play for March 1st because the Houston Rockets play the Sacramento Kings that night.
So I started to see people piping up saying that Gervonta might fight somebody else?
Speculation that he might challenge Rayo for Rayo's WBA title. That is not the case. He is, in fact, going to be facing Lamont Roach next year.
It's not going to be somebody else.
If you don't want to take it from Boxing Scene and their sources, take it from the horse's mouth. Take it from Leonard Ellerby himself.
As far as what's going on with Tank Davis, there was some talk about him fighting over in Houston. Looks like that maybe the time has run out for that. Maybe he starts in the first quarter of next year. Leonard, can we hear from you, a guy who knows the most?
Stay tuned for the Tank Davis announcement.
Is it Lamont Roach, or are there still opponents in play? Is it Lamont Roach penciled in as the opponent, or is there other guys that are still maybe going to get the nod?
Lamont Roach.
Lamont Roach. There you hear from Leonard Ellerby himself, Tank Davis, Lamont Roach first. Leonard, as always, want to thank you for your time as usual, man. We look forward to talking to you later on in the event. Thanks, man.
Not as cheery, not as boisterous as he used to be, not as arrogant.
The reality of the PBC's circumstances.
It's gonna be Lamont Roach. It's gonna be Lamont. According to one source, a likely destination for the fight could be the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, where Davis knocked out Rolando Romero in 2022. Davis's promoter, Leonard Ellerby, told Boxing Scene that Tank will announce the fight's location very soon. Stay tuned, Ellerby told Boxing Scene on Tuesday.
Tank's promoter?
Lamont Roach is still the opponent. It's all about timing. It's Tank over everybody. None of these guys can mess with Tank. Not one of them.
Well, of course not. He won't fight any of them.
I'm excited to see him get these names out of the way because it's going to happen.
Gee, I haven't heard that before.
Now, I don't want to say anybody's name, but it's just a matter of time. Line them up, and Tank is going to knock each of them down, whomever that might be.
Gee, I haven't heard that before.
He says it's all about timing and that it's only a matter of time, but time in and of itself is not on Gervonta Davis' side. He's older than these other guys. He's 30.
He's older than Shakur Stevenson, older than Keyshawn Davis, than Teofimo, than Devin.
Now, Davis has been a massive main event draw and box office success in recent years across major markets in the United States, including Vegas, LA, Brooklyn, Atlanta, San Antonio, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. The Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C., the venue where Davis broke the all-time gate record in 2023 against Hector Luis Garcia, with ticket revenue reaching $5 million and a sellout crowd of 19,000 paid attendees.
Whoop-de-doo, he did $5 million at the gate.
Is also not in consideration for March 1st, as there is both a college basketball game and an NHL game being held at the venue on the same day. The arena would have been a viable option otherwise, especially since Davis is from Baltimore, and Roach was born in Washington, D.C., and now resides in Upper Marlboro, Maryland.
That place is a shithole. Have you been there? I have.
Davis, 30-0 with 28 KOs, last fought in June and knocked out Frank Martin in the 8th round. It was his first fight since April of last year, when he knocked out Ryan Garcia in 7. Davis was looking to face IBF lightweight champion Vasilo Lomachenko on November 2nd, but the Ukrainian backed out of negotiations earlier this year. Tank's team then turned the page to Roach.
Roach, who is 25-1-1 with 10 KOs, not a big puncher, dropped Feargal McCrory 3 times and scored an 8th-round knockout in the super featherweight division.
The WBA gave Roach a special permission to move up in weight and face Gervonta for his lightweight title. More of the same. More anticlimactic opponents.
Anticlimactic fights.
So if fighting Lamont Roach became a plan B after plans for Vasyl Lomachenko fell through, and what you were trying to do was save the date this year.
All right.
But now your fight date got pushed all the way out there to March 1st. So for pushing out a Roach fight all the way out there to March 1st, why don't you just negotiate with somebody else? Somebody bigger, somebody better, more marketable. If this was the contingency due to the collapse of the Lomachenko fight, a top-ranked fighter, why didn't you just target another top-ranked fighter? Why didn't you target Teofimo Lopez? I constantly come back to this.
He was available.
This deal with Amazon at this year's end has not proven to be the megaphone that so many thought it would be, that given Amazon's reach and how many millions upon millions of subscribers they have, surely that will help the PBC reach a larger audience. But it hasn't.
They don't push that stuff.
They don't promote it. You saw how despondent Leonard Ellerby was when he was asked if Lamont Roach is still the guy.
He seemed almost disappointed.
The look on his face. This was the best that we could do. Could get away with this kind of matchmaking back when Showtime was your broadcast partner.
And the guaranteed cash was coming from them, but you're not guaranteed anything at Amazon.
This crowdfunded boxing, for the peanuts you're about to make with Lamont Roach, you could have pursued a bigger name for a bigger fight and a bigger purse. Bigger promotion, that even if your ability to promote events now is in any way stifled, Top Rank could have helped you.
Yeah, if it were one of their fighters you were fighting, if it were Teofimo.
They could have promoted the event on their platform, on ESPN, to all of its subscribers. The way it is now,
You're fighting a pro box guy.
likely for an $80 price point, which doesn't make sense to anybody because that's 2 times more money than you'd have to pay for Fury versus Usyk later on this year.
2 times.
For what is not a better fight, not a better card.
Ridiculous.
And so I often come back to this because so many in the boxing media won't. So many in the boxing media don't, including Manu Kakopiang, who wrote this boxing scene article.
What is this really gonna sell?
How much older does Gervonta Davis have to get before he starts fighting his contemporaries? How much more time has to pass? How many more empty promises does Leonard Ellerby have to make about all of this just being a matter of time?
It's ridiculous.
There's been a lot of talk about Jake Paul's fight with Mike Tyson. How could that many people get excited to see Jake box a 58-year-old?
Look at what the alternative is.
Gervonta Davis versus Lamont Roach. Are we supposed to be excited?
Are you?
Gervonta isn't stuck, is what I'm getting at. Gervonta isn't stuck with Lamont Roach. He's choosing him.
This is a choice.
If you were already talking to Top Rank about a Lomachenko fight, when that falls through, why don't you talk to them about a Lopez fight? If Lomachenko was good enough for you, then surely the man that beat him should be good enough, and he's still a champion today. That fight would move the needle a lot more than this one.
They're not trying to move the needle. They're trying to make money safely.
He's not stuck. Turkey El Sheikh was willing to bankroll a fight between Gervonta Davis and Devin Haney. I think he would have that same energy and that same attitude towards Gervonta versus Lopez if Gervonta actually wanted it. We know Teofimo does.
He says he does.
Next year, when Ryan Garcia comes back, he's talking about doing a fight with Jake Paul. Ryan Garcia, who before this year is done, will have seen action 2 times to Gervonta Davis's 1.
The fight with Devin Haney several months ago and the exhibition match he's about to have in Japan in a few weeks' time.
This is a guy who's under suspension, mind you. How does it work out to where a guy who's under suspension and a guy who you beat before has more going on and more on the horizon than you do?
How does that happen?
You know that if he follows through and he fights Jake Paul next year, that might turn out to be the biggest fight in boxing. It'll be bigger than their fight, bigger than his fight with Gervonta. And what will Gervonta be doing? Fighting Lamont Roach, when there are much better options out there.
Rumors abound They're saying that Rayo Valenzuela, newly crowned WBA super lightweight champion, will make an appearance on that same show opposite the ring, Gary Antoine Russell.
The younger brother of former WBC featherweight champion Gary Russell, Gary Antoine Russell, is currently coming off a split decision loss to Alberto Puello. For that, he gets a shot at Rayo.
Ridiculous.
Even more ridiculous is that once again, there's a mandatory challenger in the queue for the WBA title. Before it was Ishmael Barroso.
Rayo got the title shot that he was supposed to get.
Now it's Andy Hirioka, who beat Ishmael Barroso, and it looks like Gary Antoine Russell might get the title shot that he's supposed to get.
So is the WBA once again not going to do their job? Are you not going to order the Hirioka fight?
He beat Ishmael Barroso for mandatory status in September. This fight between Rayo and Gary is supposed to go down all the way out there in March. Anywhere in between September and March, they should order that fight. In fact, they shouldn't allow Rayo to fight Gary at all.
He's coming off a loss.
You've got a mandatory in the queue. Do your job. I think that would be a very boneheaded decision. A boneheaded move on Rayo's part and his team. If you're willingly giving Gary Antoine Russell a title shot, what do you get out of that?
He's a nobody.
This is an undercard fight. It's not even like you're headlining your own show. You ain't gonna make but so much money boxing this guy on Gervonta Davis's undercard, whereas as a newly crowned champion, you could take that belt to Top Ring and see what it's worth to them, or go to Matchroom. I'm sure they'd like to have another 140-pound champion to add to their 140-pound roster, since they have a lot going on there. You could go to Matchroom.
You stay at the PBC and you fight this guy and you lose that belt, you're an idiot.
You would have to be, because this guy's not your mandatory, so you don't have to fight him. There's no way this fight happens without you playing along.
It's a boneheaded move.
Not breaking away and staying on the island so that you could service as window dressing for Gervonta Davis's undercard. Don't you want to one day headline your own shows? Don't you want to start on that path? You're a champion.
I hope these rumors aren't true, but they're out there, that in Rayo's very next fight, he's going to be fighting Gary Antoine Russell.
If Rayo loses, well, that ain't good for Rayo, but it's not really good for the division either. Gary Antoine Russell is a nobody at 140 pounds.
The division is not made better for him holding a title in it.
Suppose if he won, they might try to make a rematch between him and Alberto Puello for what would be Alberto's WBC and Gary's newly obtained WBA.
A unification.
I suppose. And I say that I suppose because the PBC don't do anything in a timely fashion. This fight between Rayo and Gary is intended to make Gervonta Davis's card more appealing to the consumer for what it costs. $80.
Ridiculous.
It's a lot of money these days, with piracy being what it is in this economy. That's a lot of money when Turkey's charging you half that amount for Fury versus Usyk 2, and what in all likelihood is a better show all around, at half the price. The PBC, they got a lot of nerve.
Well, they don't have a choice. They're backed into a corner. This is the best they can do.
Okay, that doesn't make this any better. Make this card any more appealing. Once again, Gervonta Davis is not stuck. He's not stuck with Lamont Roach. He's choosing to fight him. You could have got something going with Turkey or Top Rank. Something. You're 30 years old.
It's more of the same. It's always more of the same.
So, he'll be back in March.